Well, what we'll do is we will ask questions to an expert in human values. I'm really, really intrigued by this inner compass, and I do believe, because the whole aspect of the hero's journey is the hero has a call. He or she answers their calling. It's that inner knowing, I'm capable of more. I've listened to people telling me you can't do this and I shouldn't do that, but I know deep down I'm capable of more. But what is the inner compass? How is it made up? How is it developed? How do we listen to it? How do we allow it to direct us? And that's exactly the questions that I'm going to ask my good friend Seamus Fox. If we could please get a very, very warm round of applause for Seamus.
I'll cheers you with me. Water. Doesn't look the same, to be fair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Seamus, you and I met each other in Mayo at a retreat. Would it be 5 years ago?
4.5 years ago.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that was a retreat for men all over Ireland that were asking those questions, like, what am I capable of? Am I capable of more? Is there more out there? And we've developed a friendship off the back of it. And many of the conversations that we've had with regards to our friendship has been around values.
Yeah.
And the more I suppose I walk along my own path and my own journey, that word keeps coming up time and time again, values. To the point where, like, we just spoke about people, like, surrounding yourself with good people. What is good people? You know, like, why are we attracted to certain types of people? And for me, whether I know it or not, I tend to gravitate towards people that I perceive to have similar values to mine. But oftentimes we don't know what our values are. It's hard to move beyond the buzzword of values, and that's what I'm really, really interested to talk to you about today.
And I think it is a bit of a buzzword, and this was something that I really, really wanted to deep dive into, I suppose, just from my own background. For like the last 20 years, most of my time was spent coaching and running fitness businesses, and this time of year especially, it was always a time of year where you'd see so many people coming in January and saying, this is the year, I'm getting the best shape of my life, I'm going to make a commitment and I'm going to do it. And then what I would see was those same people would be gone again in February. And I really wanted to understand why. Like, why come in and say, I'm going to do something, and then maybe 5 weeks, 6 weeks later, like nothing's happening, they're way back again. I suppose what I did for years, unknowingly, as a personal trainer, was I would project a lot of my expectations and values on the clients. They're coming to me, they're paying me, they want to get into shape, so I would project a lot. Which led me down the path of really beginning to study axiology, which is the study of meaning and purpose. And that's where I really started to understand human behaviour a wee bit better, and I really started to understand values from a different perspective, not words, but actions and behaviours. And when I started to understand that, I could really see that, okay, so every single person has a unique set of priorities and values that's fingerprint specific. And if I can get to understand that person's real priorities and values, then I can understand that person. And when I get to understand that person, I can help them create those changes they want to change and make. So for me, it was a deep dive, and it's been a deep dive over the last 6, 7 years, really into that path of really starting to understand what's truly most important for most people and what actually drives those behaviours underneath that as well.
You made two great points there, because I spoke to somebody at the interval, and he said, I've been to these events before, and I feel great, I feel inspired, but come February, like, so much happens that it just goes up in the air, and it's not my fault.
Yeah.
And that's true, because life gets really busy. And the second point, which I thought was great self-awareness, was, and I think a lot of us are guilty of this unconsciously, we project our values, or we expect people to have the same values as us. A bit like, be careful who you take information from. How does an individual work out their own inner compass or their own set of values? How would you even begin that process?
Well, like the most simplest way to do it is what I say to everybody, is look at what your life currently demonstrates.
What do you mean by that?
Look at what your life currently demonstrates. Your life will always demonstrate what's most important for you. And if you look at your life closely, it's demonstrating what's a real priority for you. And what happens a lot of times, Kieran, and from the amount of people that I've worked with, coached, and understood within myself, is we have an expectation that it should be something else. Now, this goes back thousands of years. It's been studied by the Greeks. They called it teleology, which is the study of meaning and purpose. And there was a great Scottish philosopher as well, too, called David Hume. and he struggled with it. It was called the is versus the ought. The is what your life actually is, and ought is what it ought to be. You should be doing this, you need to be doing that, you have to be doing this. And that's the injected values of other people. And a lot of the times I'll share with people is like every single person wants to be loved and appreciated for who they are. But most people are afraid to be who they are, and who you are is an expression of what you actually really value. That might be as a father, a mother, a coach, a teacher, a gym owner, a business owner, whatever it might be. And so many times from business owners that I work with, all the goals, the visions, and everything that they want to achieve, underneath it is a sense of freedom. And that sense of freedom is an expression of what's truly most important for you. But if you're living with the injected values of society and other people, you can't be yourself. And I think it's really, really important to start understanding what that is for you. So look at what your life is demonstrating, and you'll see what's a real priority for you. And if you were to drown out the noise, as we've talked about here, it'll help you stop living with the injected values of other people so that you can stick to priority. Even if you look at the word, like the hierarchy of your values, which you hear me talk about a lot, like the root meaning and the etymology of the word hierarchy means holy order, sacred order. So when you start to organize your life and your business and your days around what's most important for you, it's ordered. And that's where you get to express yourself properly. Now, it's a journey, like we've talked about here, and there's going to be like ups and downs along the way. But I think really starting to own that for yourself is where you're going to be your most authentic self, and you get to show up as you.
Stevie mentioned authenticity, and now you're mentioning it as well. One of the best events I've ever attended was when you brought one of the world lead in human behaviour to Belfast last year, Dr. John DeMartini.
Yeah.
And the main takeaway, we come to these events and you always get one thing. The thing that I really remembered from that event was around authenticity. He said authenticity is when your daily actions are congruent with your highest values.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that authenticity is a living, breathing thing. It's how you show up every day. I suppose, again, with all these things, you're trying to move beyond the buzzword of authenticity, the buzzword of resilience.
Yeah.
So Kate asked me what resilience was to me, and I kind of thought, well, it's a capacity to cope with the ups and downs. It's something within yourself. What does authenticity mean to you when we're talking about values and your inner compass?
Yeah, just like you talked about and what John talked about last year. And I've been studying with John for the last 7 years, and every time I jump on a course or do something different or pick up a book, I'm learning something different again. And to be your most authentic self is to know who you are. And to know who you are is to know what you actually really prioritize and value. Like the Oracle at Delphi talked about know thyself, love thyself, be thyself. To know thyself, you have to know what you prioritize. To be thyself, you have to actually embody that. And to love thyself, you have to live according to what's truly most important for you. You can't love yourself if you're trying to be a version of somebody else. So your most authentic state is to understand what that is, and they map out your days, your weeks, your months, your life, your business in accordance with that. Because any time that you inject the values of somebody else, you're not being you. So if I put you on a pedestal and I think that you have more things that I don't, I'm going to minimize me in accordance to you, and I'm not going to be authentic, and I'm not getting to be myself. But if I see that you have certain traits and certain actions and certain habits, and I also have them too, and if I can see in the areas that maybe you are excelling in and I might admire, and I can also own them within myself and see where I do it in my form and my values, then I get to be myself. And I think your most authentic state is when you understand what that is. And again, values not being words, for me, values is very much about your actions, your habits and your behaviours, and what you deem is truly most important for you. I think that's where you discover your real purpose. It's what lights you up. It's what gives you energy, which gives you focus, where you feel most inspired. And a lot of the times, that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's taken out of people, but people have this expectation for it to be something else rather than what it is. Going back to what David Hume talked about, the is versus the ought.
As you were saying that, I was thinking of that phrase, comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
It's a phrase that's thrown about, but then when you say that, when you're putting somebody on a pedestal, if you're minimizing yourself, and probably vice versa, if you're minimizing people, you're putting yourself on a pedestal, so your actions aren't congruent then with authenticity. One of the best conversations I had with you, Seamus, was around this subject. It was a couple of years ago, maybe three or 4 years ago. I jumped on a call with you one day. I stopped powerlifting, which was a priority for me for a number of years. And I went from somebody that would never have missed a session, tried my best, I had discipline in that area of my life, stopped competing and couldn't really get back to the gym. And I remember at the time I had an office in Lisburn, and I used to bring my gym bag to the office in Lisburn, and the gym was literally here to the end of this room. It was literally like 5 or 6 buildings up.
Yeah.
And I never went. Even though I had my gym bag with you, I just didn't have that drive anymore to do it. But I would have drove to Dublin for a business meeting with a smile on my face. And I remember saying to you, like, I'm struggling to make heads or tails of why I was so focused for years in one area of my life to the point where I'm at a different stage now and I can't even go to the gym. And you explained it in a way that just made a lot of sense.
Yeah. And again, this was one of the reasons that I wanted to start deep diving into it, because of the gym. And people will say something's really, really important for them, but then I'll look at what their life is demonstrating, and it might be two completely different things. And as I talked about with you and I talk about with everybody else, there's no right or wrong. Like, your values are your values, and when you get to express that in whatever shape or form, brilliant. But if you want to begin to shift and change that, you have to link it to something that's really, really important for you. So let's say your business gives you more fulfillment, gives you more energy, inspiration, you get more validation, you get a sense of meaning from that, then your behaviours are naturally going to gravitate towards that, which health and fitness then might slip down the order. It might go down that wee bit lower in the priority. You might have been getting all of those things previously from powerlifting, but now you're getting it from business. So now your actions, habits and behaviours are going to be dedicated to business. So if you want to begin to, I suppose, shift and change that, the best way to do it is to try and link it. So link, let's say you're in business and health and fitness is lower in the priority, you're not doing that. What I'll get to do with every guy that I coach is I'll go through a linking process, because human beings, we naturally gravitate towards what is going to give me a greater advantage over disadvantage according to what I really, really prioritize most. And we're making those decisions consciously or unconsciously. So if I get to link health and fitness and you showing up fitter, stronger and healthier and how that actually impacts your business, and you make enough connections, over time those habits and behaviours begin to shift and change. Again, it's a bit of a process that they take people through that, but it's really linking the benefit of doing X to see how it benefits X, and then the behaviours begin to shift and change, because everything's led by meaning and purpose, and if we get more meaning and purpose in one area, we're going to go there. But if I can get you to link a lower area to that area, then now I start to find more meaning and purpose in doing that. So I used to do it with clients in the gym all the time, and they would have family as their highest value. Like let's say a woman come in the gym wanting to get in shape, the family was her highest priority. So I'd have to get her to link the benefits of being fitter, stronger and healthier to her family. How does it help you show up better? Talk about longevity, energy, all sorts. Then they start to find more meaning and purpose in doing that, and the value shifts.
You kind of took me through that process, which was I seen something that was business related as it lit me up.
Yeah.
Drove to Dublin, smile on my face, and I somewhere seen the gym as a chore.
Yeah.
And then you took me through that process of, I'm not going to change your mind, Kieran, but what I want you to do is to write a list out of 40 reasons why going to the gym and getting back into health and fitness would have a positive impact on your business.
Yeah. So
I was writing things down like more energy, more confidence, better discipline, so on and so forth. And then I started to see that, oh, this plays a part in this. This is linked to this. And it was really eye-opening in many ways. And I suppose...
And how it even impacts your family and stuff as well.
Totally.
Yeah, you integrate them all together, for sure.
Totally. Let's touch on some of the topics today and get into where values and where this inner compass plays its piece. We spoke about guilt.
Yeah.
We spoke about guilt. I know it's a subject you've kind of, and before we do, as you were talking, I remember the conversation you had with John D. Martini, where you said to him, John, I want to get into business, and he said, no, you don't. Do you remember? No. He spotted the books in the background.
Yeah, it was around wealth building.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the first courses I did with him, we were running through some questions, and I thought I had a value on wealth building, and he just called me out on the call as he does in front of everybody else, and he looked around the books and everything that was on my library, and he says, I don't see any books that are related to wealth building. He says, you might have a value in lifestyle and spending. He says, but I don't see any books that are related to wealth building. He says, so are you sure it's a real value? And when I started to go through things properly, I could see that it wasn't. Now, I wanted to bring it higher. And then I started to bring that higher by using that linking exercise. So leaning into that guilt complex, I think that you talk about, was, again, because we maybe have this expectation that we should value something higher than the other, we increase that likelihood of guilt. And as I share time and time again, guilt is an assumption. It's an assumption in your mind that you've caused more negatives than positives in any situation.
Yeah.
But as you talked about earlier, there's always two sides. Yeah. There's always the polarity of good and bad. So I think guilt is something that a lot of the times impacts us all. So let's say you're focusing on your business and you think the family should be higher and you have a sense of guilt around that. Okay, so what are the benefits to your family by you focusing on your business? So you start to shift and change your perception of it.
I think that's a big one where people struggle is if I'm going to give a certain slice of my pie or if I'm going to give a certain aspect of my life more energy, time and devotion, there's a trade-off somewhere else. And then they struggle with navigating that trade-off.
Yeah.
How again, does that come into authenticity? Or how, if there's somebody sitting here today thinking, I'm just going to give a random example, I want to improve my health. And as a result of that, I need to spend more time for myself, by myself. And that means spending less time with my family.
People think then I'm being selfish.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you live in your own values, you're not being selfish. You can't be selfish living in your own priorities. It's the expectation of others that are clouding your judgment and creating guilt. If you live according to what's truly most important for you and you organise your life around what's truly most important for you, a lot of the times you eliminate that like feeling of guilt or being selfish. Now, a simple way to do that, to alleviate that again, is, well, how does this benefit my family if I am dedicating myself to health and fitness? How does this benefit my family if I am dedicating myself to business? I'll give you a prime example. There's a guy in the group that I coach, David, Australian guy, and no, he's Irish, lives in Australia. And when he did his value determination process, business came out on top, and he felt guilty about family that came out at second or third. And he wanted to change it. And I says, you can change it for sure, but what's the drawbacks if you change it? What are the drawbacks of your family if you now start dedicating yourself to your family instead of your business? So it's a flip of the switch. You begin to see something differently because we might have the expectation that family should be number one, but you might have a really high value in business. Doesn't mean you don't care about your family. Doesn't mean you don't love your family. You might be building your business for your family. Sometimes you're not. You're building it for yourself because of all the things that you get from it. So I think sometimes when it comes to those types of things, like guilt and all those different types of feelings, it's more the moral judgments of society a lot of the times that we think we need to be one way and we need to live this way other than accepting it for what it actually is. Again, going back to that is versus ought. When you live according to what it is, you can describe your life. It's descriptive. When it's based in the ought, it's prescriptive. I'm prescribing how you should be. But how you should be is according to what I'm probably saying and not according to what you're actually living and what's truly most important for you.
It's so fascinating. It's reminded me of Neeraj's question of, somebody no longer valuing the same things as you, I suppose.
Yeah.
Like even from like a relational or a friendship point of view, how do two people then communicate what their values are, and the fact that, say in a relationship, that if I have different values and you have different values and ultimately they can, interlock and for the betterment of the family.
Yeah.
But it's probably very important for each individual to be themselves. But how do you articulate what your values are and understand other people's?
Yeah. I suppose even they maybe take the word away from values and call it priorities. Because that's essentially what it is. And I'm the same. Me and my wife are together 26 years. And she has a really high value in family. And I've got a really high value in business and coaching. And a lot of the times you'll get into a relationship with your complementary opposite. And a lot of the times what happens in relationships is we expect other people to be like us, which creates conflict. This is in intimate relationships, business relationships, partnerships, teams, whatever it might be. If we have the expectation for other people to be more like us, what do? We just create conflict because people don't want to be like you, they want to be themselves. So when you get to understand another person's real priorities and values and see how them living in that actually helps you live in yours, you open up communication. And you can see how my wife, being dedicated to being more of a family person, allows me the time, freedom, and whatever to go and do this. And she sees that whenever I'm going and doing this, that builds my business. It also helps support our family. So it's starting to really look at each other's priorities and see that I'm not going to get Emma to be me. It's just not going to happen. I've tried to even bring her into the business in certain areas. It just was creating conflict. So I went, okay, so I allow her to live in her values because that's where she gets to be herself. And she lets me do the same for me. Now, did it start out that way? Probably not. There's been iterations along the way. But the longer we've got together and the longer we've been together, the more we've really began to truly understand each other. And I think it's allowing a person to do what's most important for them and seeing how, by them doing that, that actually helps you fulfill your vision, your mission, your values at the same time.
That makes sense, because I know one of DeMartini's phrases is the universe is always seeking balance.
Yeah.
And then that yin and yang of a relationship of, complementing one another. But I can also see how it would be really difficult for people to navigate that if they don't know their own values first and foremost. And you're saying that in order to own your own values, just see how you're living your life. It's there, clear as day.
Your life is demonstrating it, 100%. Your life's it's not hard to look. Look and see what your life demonstrates. You get up every single day and do it. Like I was speaking to you, I come to these events, but then come February and back to square one again. You're back to your real priorities. And I always say there's no such thing as a transformation unless you transform what's a priority for you. So unless you really want to be fit, stronger and healthy, unless that's really, really high in your priorities, the likelihood of it happening is minimal. There's no right or wrong in it. And you talked about resilience and discipline. You're going to be more resilient and adaptable in your highest priorities and highest values. You're going to find a way instead of finding a way out. In your lowest values and lowest priorities, it's not really that important for you. You want to escape, and your behaviours will show that. So when you're sticking to your highest priority and your highest value, everything's on the way, not in the way. But when it's a really low value and low priority and you don't really care about it, and you're subordinating to other people and trying to live in somebody else's values, that's where you start to get procrastination, sabotage, all these different symptoms. Those symptoms are actually mechanisms to try to bring you back to authenticity, to be yourself, to live in your own priorities, to live in your own values. So I think all of those things for me are just mechanisms to show where you might be out of alignment, as we've talked about, that inner compass. Yeah. It's what Aristotle called the golden mean. And the golden mean is the mean between the volatilities, the meaning that you give to whatever you focus on. Like when everything else is going on around you, the positives and negatives, the supports, the challenges, the ups and downs, as we talked about here today, it's what you return to. That golden mean is that thread of purpose and meaning that lights you up, that you want to focus on and you want to keep moving towards to expand and grow.
Fantastic, Seamus. Well, as you're talking, I'm listening, and for me, values and those priorities seem to be a bit of a system that support us. Should we be willing to kind of know what they are and live in accordance with them? Yeah. You'd mentioned a few words again today, trying to move beyond buzzwords. You'd mentioned procrastination. I suppose if we maybe explore some of the words like imposter syndrome, burnout, resilience, authenticity, if we maybe start with imposter syndrome, I think that is a word that comes up time and time again, where people think, I want more, I want to go on the journey, but then they start to doubt, am I worth it? Can I do this? So on and so forth. And it's almost, by the time they've had that inner conversation, they don't move anywhere. Yeah. So because what you're saying is almost like an internal science. What would this kind of piece that you've dedicated the last load of years to your life studying, what would it say about something like imposter syndrome?
Well, for me, like you touched on it earlier, Kieran, the imposter syndrome is the comparison trap. You'll only feel like an imposter when you're comparing yourself to somebody else. You can't be an imposter when you're being yourself. When you're living according to what you really value and just be you, you'll not feel like an imposter. But if I compare myself to you and I try to be you, and I try to speak about the things that you speak about, which I might not have any experience in, I'm going to feel like an imposter. And that's going to show up in 4 ways. It's going to show up in my psychology, my physiology, it's going to show up sociology, and it'll show up in my theology a lot of the time. So it'll show up in the quiet nudges of your intuition and your psychology. You're not being yourself, you're bullshitting yourself here. It'll show up in your physiology, you'll get tense. If that goes on over a long period of time, you start to break down. It's a sympathetic response. It'll show up in your sociology. When you're not being yourself, people tell you,
Yeah.
If you start getting cocky and proud and rising above the parapet, people are only too glad to bring you back down again. And then if you're just not listening to any of it, random shit a lot of times begins to happen. So the imposter syndrome, again, is a feedback mechanism to get you back, for me, to get you back in the alignment to be you, where you're not comparing yourself by exaggerating yourself above your true self-worth or minimizing yourself below your true self-worth. When you be yourself, that's where you get your true self-worth. And a lot of the times the imposter syndrome begins to go, it eradicates. So I think for me, as you touched about earlier, it's literally that comparison trap.
Where does the likes of self-sabotage and procrastination come into this then? Because again, when you're asking people, why do you feel overwhelmed or why haven't you started this part of the journey? It's two more words that often come up.
Yeah.
Procrastination's a big one. And that's or what they perceive to be self-sabotage. But again, what's your experience with working with people and these two words?
Yeah, procrastination, I suppose, first. Again, procrastination can come from not having a clear plan, not having any structure, not like being clear about where you want to go and how exactly you're going to move there, or you've created a plan and a vision and a goal, but you haven't chunked it down. There's nothing that's leading you in that direction. Or procrastination occurs when you're trying to do things that aren't a priority for you. Now, that's not to say it's not a priority for the business. It's not a priority for what needs to be done, but it's not a priority for you. And if it's low on your values and low on your priorities, you're going to procrastinate in those areas. So what I would say is, and I do this time and time again with people that I'm coaching, where do you not procrastinate? Oh, here. Okay. Where does your energy go down? Here. Where does it go up? Here. And the areas that the energy goes up is when you start to express what you really love and value. The areas that your energy goes down and what you procrastinate in is going to be in the lower priorities. So if you have a team, etc., it's really good to then start delegating out, eliminating, putting things to other people, so that you can stick to priority, you can stick to the real thing that actually lights you up. And a lot of the times for guys in business, there's a lot of business owners in here, that might be the thing that they actually got into business for. It might be the thing that they started their business for, but maybe as the business begins, they grow and scale. Now you started to actually delegate that out to other people, and you've lost your sense of purpose again. And you feel like you're maybe on that hamster wheel, and you're going round and round in circles. So procrastination for me is just a symptom. Either there's not a clear plan, or it's not a real priority. Not that it's not a priority for the business, but not a real priority for you. There's areas in my life that I know that if I was to try and dedicate myself to them, I'm not going to do them, because they're not really the things that I really prioritize. And then as you touched on sabotage, I think for me, sabotage, I don't believe we sabotage at all. There's a hidden motive there.
It's a what, sorry?
There's a hidden motive.
Okay.
So if we base it on, if we only do anything that is going to kind of give us a benefit in some way or form, then there has to be a hidden motive. And that sabotaging pattern, again, might be because you're not feeling fulfilled, you're not doing what you really want to do, you're not being your authentic self, you're not living a life that's meaningful for you. And the sabotage patterns a lot of times are to get you away from the thing that's not leaving you fulfilled. So there's some sort of motive there in that behavior. And what I look for is a motive. What's a motive? Instead of just labeling it as you're sabotaging yourself, no, there's a motive there. So I want to try and find what that motive is to help people get back into alignment again.
But before we talk about your big event coming up, we're focusing on words that people were perceived to have a negative connotation, like imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, procrastination. Me and you had a great conversation around the week of something that's seen as positive in ambition. And I had said to you that, Seamus, I feel sometimes ambition's like a double-edged sword, in that being ambitious is great and it gets you to where you are, and it's almost, you feel as if you're creating your own growth. But the other side of it is the emotional roller coaster that can often come with it, and sometimes the extra stress and the question and all the rest of it. And you had a really good answer with that. I think that will resonate with a lot of people in the room, being that growth minded already.
Yeah.
What is ambition, and why does it appear to be sometimes a double-edged sword?
Yeah, well, like if you break down ambition, the meaning of ambition is ambi, which means both-sided. So like, if you're pursuing goals and if you're pursuing a vision and you're only pursuing it is going to be all positive, then you're in for a rude awakening. I guarantee everybody in here has had goals and visions that they've moved towards and thought this is going to give me more benefit than drawback, more positive than negative. And then 6 months down the line, they get help with this, with all the stuff they didn't preempt. So being successful and ambitious, like most people are in this room, or they wouldn't be in this room, I think it's important when you're setting out in your vision and your goals is to look at both sides, because there's drawbacks to the things that you want as well. And if you go into those goals and visions with that type of mindset, you're going to be more centered, which means you're not getting hit with the drawback 6 months down the line that you didn't even look at. So what that does a lot of the times is it brings you into a part of the brain that helps you be more objective, the executive center. For a reason, it's called the executive center, because we see things differently. We're more objective, we have more long-term planning, long-term vision, and we can see things rationally. Where a lot of the times if we perceive that something is going to give us more benefit than drawback, a lot of the times we're not being clear about what it is that we want. So yeah, I think having ambition means to be looking at both sides of the equation, because as you've talked about already as well, is like the things that you want to go and achieve, there's things that you have to give up to go and do that.
Yeah.
And are you willing to go and give up those things in order to achieve those things? But going tying it back into values is, if it's something that's a real priority and it's a drive within you to go and achieve it, you're going to move through all of those oscillations and all those volatilities in order to keep moving forward. And you touched on Dr. McKillop, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And like that ambition of somebody telling him he can't do something, that created a massive void in his life. And that void a lot of times becomes the thing that you're trying to fulfill.
It's funny you mentioned that. Funny that I started the podcast, obviously to tell stories, but I have a goal of getting to 100 episodes and to see if there's any golden threads. And already, there's only 20 episodes, but one of the real golden threads that come out is the chip on your shoulder.
Yeah.
Or the void.
Yeah.
Every single person so far, Carl Frampton, people said I was too small. I wanted to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
Mary Peters, people say I couldn't do it. 1972, female athlete, I wanted to prove them wrong. That chip on your shoulder, that void can be a real powerful driving force. I suppose, Seamus, just to finish up, we've mentioned, and I love that phrase, both sides of the coin complementing each other. And I suppose today, like I'm talking about dealing with the emotional side of change and growth. And if we look at the other side, it's about the systems and processes and strategies and how they actually navigate that and bring the inner compass to life. I know you've got an event coming up which you're going to kind of show the other side of the coin to people and walk them through that process. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's next month at the Titanic Hotel, February 22nd. It's called the Fit Mind Experience. We're going to be deep diving into a lot of what we kind of talked about here, like actually going through that. I call it the purpose process, finding what that purpose actually is, and beginning to align your goals and your vision for 2026 in alignment with those, so that you do get more momentum, that you are creating more consistency, and that you're not like maybe falling into those sabotage patterns. There's a framework that I love taking people through, that took you through as well too, and it's clearing the fear.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times there might be those unconscious motives that are keeping you stuck and keeping that handbrake on. So you might be clearing your visions and your values, but then what's maybe keeping you stuck? And sometimes that might be past experiences or whatever it might be. So there's a method to try and clear that fear and move towards that vision. And you know yourself, events like these is all about networking, learning certain frameworks, but collaborating, getting connections and helping each other grow. Yeah. So February 22nd.
And I've been there for a few events, but I think it was up in Derry a few years back. You took me through, when you took the room through that one, and I think you came over to me and were like, "You all right?" I was just in a disbelief of that one exercise where I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was more than a penny drop moment. It was like, I've been worrying so much about a particular thing.
Yeah.
And whatever way you done the exercise, it was almost like laughing at my own stress over something.
Yeah.
What I love about your events is you're taking through people that process on the day.
Yeah.
Like there's a start, middle and end. And it probably really complements a lot what we've spoken here today to people to move on and actually begin the process. You mentioned the word alignment.
Yeah.
You know, aligning what they want to do in this year and beyond with that, you know, their purpose, their values, their vision.
Yeah.
How do people get tickets, or how can people here go to it?
Yeah, 100%. You can get tickets on my Instagram page if you go to the link in the bio, or if you go onto my LinkedIn, there's a link in the bio there as well too. So yeah, you can get tickets there, or reach out and send me a message.
Yeah, and it's in Titanic Hotel.
Titanic Hotel, yeah.
On a Sunday as well, isn't it?
On a Sunday, so we kick off 9 a.m. arrival, 9:30 kickoff, and then we're finishing up around 1 p.m.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
They're fantastic days. I would urge anyone to go. I think what I get out of your events is the word that springs to mind is clarity. In that you think you know what you want until you do something like this, and it really there's an element of being challenged at your events where you keep bringing people back to that inner compass. But
Yeah.
is this what you really want?
Yeah.
You know, and I think we've spoke today a lot about reducing the noise, but a lot of that is external noise, social media. I think what a lot of your events do, Seamus, is it reduces the internal noise,
Yeah.
which we all have, whether we like to admit it or not. But the overthinking and the questioning things, it just gives you a hell of a lot of clarity.
Yeah, I think it's the allowance, the understand, right, this is what's important for me.
Yeah.
And I'm already expressing and living out what's actually really important for me. And that's okay, in whatever shape or form that might be. And if I want to do more, and I want to expand and grow in that area, well, this is how you do it. And this is some of the frameworks and the mechanisms that will help you change a lot of those things for you. But I think the big thing, as you talked about, is just like sometimes we guys that I'd taken through a value process and a termination process, it's like, it's a weight off the shoulders. This is what's important. I thought it should be this. I thought it should be that. So yeah, touching on what you said, that alignment, and a lot of the times it's like the release of pressure that people can feel when they just get to be themselves and maybe see that they're already doing that.
Well, fantastic, Seamus. I, for one, am looking forward to kind of, suppose we spoke today, people do feel pressurized to have everything figured out by the 1st of January. I think you should allow yourself a bit of time to, well, what is it I want? What is in alignment with my values? It's great that your event is on at the start of the year where people starting to maybe piece together of how they want the rest of 2026 to unfold for them. So please do click on the Seamus's bio, SeamusFox.com as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure if that link is actually on the website. It's definitely on my Instagram. It's definitely on LinkedIn.
And also you'll be here kind of hanging about for people to maybe speak to you after with regards to the event.
100%.
Ladies and gentlemen, please a very warm round of applause. Thank you, mate. Brilliant. Thank you.